Welcome back to Movies Recapped. Today, I will show you American neo-noir action thriller film. Spoilers ahead, watch out, and have a good day.
Joe Dost is an unsympathetic marketing salesman who loses deals due to his alcoholism and travel. When his estranged wife angrily called out that he had missed his daughter Mia's third birthday party because he was too busy with his work, Joe angrily defended himself, saying the 3-year-old will not think much of it. After abusing his wife with so much terminology, he ends up drinking, vomiting, and fainting, eventually ending up at the bar with his old friend Chucky. However, Chunky refused to let him enter due to his drunken state. Joe sees a Korean woman selling toys on the street with a yellow umbrella and buys a toy duck for her daughter. When Chucky comes out of his bar, he finds the toy on the sidewalk, while Joe was nowhere to be seen. Joe wakes up in a small hotel room, where he is imprisoned. He is offered food, but is denied human contact. Usually at one point, the room was filled with gas so that his inmates could intervene when he fainted. In his solitude, Joe often has hallucinations and befriends the rat, only to have it served to him for his next meal. Joe is allowed to watch television, and one day he sees a news broadcast saying that his wife was brutally abused and murdered. Forensic evidence was collected from him and placed at the crime scene, turning him into the main culprit. Joe was devastated but could do nothing about it. Over the years, he learns from the crime show on TV that his daughter has been adopted by another couple and she continues her life and becomes a famous cello player. He finally decides to improve himself in his cell. He works and writes letters to his daughter that he will get out of jail anytime. He scratches his hands on the prison sentence each year and also lists those responsible for his current condition. All this time, his every movement is recorded on camera by a man named Channy. 20 years later, Joe plans to escape, but is suddenly gassed and released. He wakes up with his daughter picture and a cell phone with a countdown timer. He sees a street vendor with an umbrella who sold the duck to him and follows her. Later he finds himself using his newly discovered physical fitness to hit members of the football team, who he thought were bothering her. Following the path, he meets a nurse named Mary Sebastian who cares for the homeless, who thinks something is wrong with Joe, but does not open up to her. She gives him her card in case he needs some help. He came back to his friend Chucky's bar and told his story. Then an anonymous person called him, saying he could earn forgiveness with Chucky's help. To see if Joe can find people like his ex-boss or old colleague, he begins to investigate all the people who he did injustice with, but no qualifies, not eligible. When Joe passes out again, Chucky finds Mary's number and she comes for his aid. She finds a pile of letters Joe wrote to his daughter Mia and starts reading them. Joe wakes up and gets angry, saying that the letters are only for his daughter. Mia, a former drug addict, feels sorry for his condition and agrees to help him. Joe started sampling Chinese food in area restaurants, trying to find the same dumplings he had lived on for a few years. Once he finds the right restaurant, he sees a man taking a large order and decides to chase him, simply armed with a claw hammer. He finds the prison and gains entry after killing some of the guards. He spotted Chaney, cut off pieces of meat from his neck and tortured him, finding that Chaney was the only caretaker of the facility that could hold so many people. Chaney gives Joe a tape with the voice of the man who ordered Joe's imprisonment. On the way out, Joe fights several guards and passes out from injuries. After, a mysterious man helped and dropped him at Chucky's. Joe recovered and got another call from a stranger, who blamed him a little more. Later, Joe notices that the call has not been blocked and calls back. The recipient is one of the customers at Chucky's bar, accompanied by a female bodyguard. Joe attacks angrily. The stranger is a man named Adrian who challenges Johnny to find out who he is and why he put him in prison. If Joe is successful, Adrian presents him with a fully signed confession paper and a diamond suitcase stating that Adrian was involved in Joe's wife's murder. Most importantly, Adrian will bring Joe to his daughter and then kill himself if he is able to know the truth. He goes to Mary's home, where Chaney's gang is ready to harm her. They beat Joe badly, but before Chaney could start torturing him, Adrian phoned him and paid him good money. Mary was shaken tremendously, though determined to help. She uses her Shazam app to find out if the ringtone on his phone is an old preschool anthem, suspecting that it was crucial to solve the old school puzzle. But Adrian kept an eye on them. They tracked down Edwina Burke, headmistress of Joe and Mary Joe's old prep school. Mary distracted her attention while Joe entered the apartment. Mary tries to convince Miss Burke that Joe is innocent, and that someone from his old school may try to frame his wife murder. She finds out that Joe met his wife at school, but he's a very selfish student, so he has some enemies there. Joe found Adrian's name and picture in a yearbook, proving that he was in the same year as Joe and Chucky. The school is now closed, but the documents are still present there. Joe and Mary go there, but the gate is closed, so they decide to come back later in the evening. Meanwhile, Chucky does some internet searches and finds out that Adrian once built a hospital dedicated to his dead sister. Suddenly remembering something, he phoned Joe and sent a message that was about the prostitute. Unfortunately, Adrian intercepted the message. Angered at how Chucky calls his sister, he goes to the bar and kills him. Joe and Mary go to a motel to look after Joe's wounds, and they end up making love. Little did they know that Adrian would sneak through the camera. That evening, Joe and Mary enter the prep school, finding evidence that Adrian and his sister had attended. After hearing Chucky's message, Joe recalls that he used to harass his sister in his school days. Later, during a school party, he saw Adrian's sister having good time with a man in the garden, assuming he was a teacher at the school, and told Chucky about her bad reputation. In the school library, Joe and Mary researched newspaper articles. Apparently, Adrian and his wealthy family moved to Luxembourg within a year, where a major tragedy struck, killing the entire family but seriously injuring Adrian. It identifies the man as the girl's own father who got intimate with his own daughter. Outside the prep school, Joe and Mary found a box with Chucky's town. Thus, in shock, returned to the motel. Joe found a picture of the badly injured Mia on his phone. Despite her asking him not to leave, Joe leaves and sets out to confront Adrian. Joe contacts Adrian, and after a brief fight with his bodyguard, he tells Adrian that he has resolved his puzzle. Adrian blames Joe for the tragedy that befell his family, and therefore imprisoned him. It wasn't until this evening that Joe realized that the sex scandal involved an incestuous relation. Adrian replies that it goes deeper than that. His beloved father had different relationships with him and his sister. They were very happy with it, but when the scandal spread throughout the school, the sister's reputation was ruined, so she had to move to Luxembourg. Eventually, the father kills his wife, daughter, and himself, injuring Adrian badly. Adrian says he lost everything as a result of Joe's actions, but he keeps his promise and takes Joe to see Mia. Joe finds out that the crime shows he saw on TV while he was in captivity were shown and only shown to him. The Mia she saw on the show was a professional actress, recruited by Adrian since she was a child, and even the last photo of her cropped face was fake. Joe angrily and physically attacks Adrian, forcing him to take him to his real daughter. Adrian only stated that Joe never asked the right question. Instead of asking why he was in prison, he should have asked why he was released. Adrian was then showing real pictures of Mia. Adrian took care of her after her mother's death and grew up as Marie. He staged everything to get her addicted and developed the father complex, so that when she meets Joe, he feels sorry for her, and eventually finally culminating in the two going intimate as a torture to Joe. Joe was shocked by the news when Adrian picked up his phone to call Mary. Joe begs Adrian not to divulge the information to Mary, instead submitting himself to Adrian to do as he pleases. Adrian simply said that he had no desire to kill Joe, because he was where Joe always wanted him so that he could feel Adrian's pain. When his revenge was over, Adrian shot himself. Joe tries to fix things by using Adrian's diamonds with Marie, and even Cheney, giving him money and arranging to put himself back in jail. Joe sends Mary a letter with some diamonds and duck dolls, saying he did something terrible. She should forget about him and try to rediscover her happiness. The man who had just returned from his old prison had a mysterious smile on his face in the end.
Don't forget to subscribe, it helps the channel, and hit that notification bell to be notified for daily vids. Thank you for watching.